Hi to the Hill students, Mr. Kaczynski with you. Gonna do the 4.8 practice your skills from our textbook. Here we go. Number one says give the first and third quartile of each data set. Well, this data set is listed in order from least to greatest. So I think we can do this by hand here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 numbers. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth number, or 5 numbers below, 5 numbers above, would be the median. So in this case, our median is the average of 20 and 20, which is 20. So our first quartile would be right here, 16. That's the middle of the first set of the data, 3 out of the 5. So Q1 equals 16. And our third quartile would be the median of the second half of data, so the third out of those 5. So Q3 here would be 25. All right, the next set of data, also in order from least to greatest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that means the very fifth one would be the median. Okay, so now we can break this up into the first half of data and the second half of data. The first quartile is going to be right here between the 48 and the 53. Notice how I have 2 in front of that line and 2 numbers behind that line. So Q1 is going to be the average of 48 and 43, or the mean of 48 and 53 rather. So I'll add those up, divide by 2, and you can see it's 50.5. And then quartile 3 is going to be the median of 62 and 62, or the mean of 62 and 62, which is just 62. All right, then we get to C, and the numbers are not listed in order, so I think what I'll do is use a shortcut. I would have to put those in order to do what we just did on A and B, but I think I'll put them all into a list: 33, 27, 41, 35, 24, 35 again, 44, 37, 29, 39, and 42. I'll go back to my main screen. I'll hit Stat, Calculate, and I want one var stats, one variable stats. Hit Enter on that. Make sure it's list 1. Hit Calculate. If I go down to the bottom, it gives me my 5 number summary, which has got the quartile 1 as 29, and quartile 3 is 41. All right, and lastly here, let's go back into Stat, Edit a List. I'll go into list 2 here. I'm going to put these numbers: 85, 88, 73, 62, 62, 91, 80, 77, and 93. I'll go back to my main screen, run Stat, Calculate, one var stats, but this time I want list 2 because that's where I put my data. And scroll to the bottom, I get my 5 number summary, including quartile 1, which is at 75, and quartile 3, which is at 89.5. All right, state whether each data values, or the data values in each set, are increasing or decreasing. So not a lot going on here. We can tell that as X is getting bigger, so is Y. So I would call this an increasing data set. On B, we can see that as X is getting bigger, Y is getting smaller. So I would call that a decreasing data set. This one's a little bit tougher. You got to look and see as X is getting bigger, what's happening to Y. Generally, it's actually getting smaller, although it went from 9 to 10 at first. I would say it got smaller from there. So I'm going to say decreasing for this. And as X is getting bigger, 22, 25, oh boy, that one's a little bit tougher. Maybe we make a quick scatter plot and check it out. So we'll clear list 1, put this data in. We've got all our data in for list 1. Put list 2 in, our y values, 26, 20 and 30, 28, 22. All right, we'll go second stat plot, turn on our plot. Let's go zoom 9, and generally it looks like it's increasing. Not a real close relationship there, but increasing. All right, 3, write the equation of a line that passes through each pair of points. So the first thing we got to do is figure out the slope. So I'll do change in y, 10 minus 4, over change in x, 5 minus 11. That'll give me 6 over negative 6, or just a slope of negative 1. So the slope of a line, or the equation of that line, I can use either of the 2 points. I'll just use the first one. Let's go y equals negative 1. I'm not going to write that. Oh yeah, actually I'm going to put a negative sign in there. So negative 1 times x minus 5 plus 10. Got another 2 set of points down here. So again, let's do change in y, 22 minus 26, over change in x, 23 minus 31. That'll give me negative 4 over negative 8, which simplifies to 1/2. And then we can write our equation. We'll go with y equals 1/2 times x minus 23 plus 22. Obviously, I could graph this equation, trace it, and make sure it runs through these 2 points. Same with this one up here. I could put those into intercept form or slope-intercept form as well, but I think I'll save us time and just leave it in point slope. All right, so they give us Q1 and Q3 values for x and y, and they tell us that the line has a positive slope. So let's do just a real quick sketch of what this might look like here. So x1 is 40 and x2 is 60. So if we put that on a scatter plot, those would be our x values along the horizontal axis. All right, and if we put the y values, 19.2 and 24.2, those would go right here along the y-axis. So 19.4, or 19.2, I'm sorry. And 24.2. All right, so these are the points that we need to be able to write the equation of a line through the 2 points, because they're telling us it has a positive slope. Those are the points we're going to use to, let's find the slope. So m equals change in y. So it goes from 24.2 to 19.2. Over change in x. And again, I did this point. So 24.2 minus 19.2, I have to do 60 minus 40. So that gives me 5 over 20, or we can call it 0.25. So our equation is going to be y equals 0.25 times x minus, let's use this point here, 60 plus 24.2. Now part D, they give us the exact same values, but they say it has a negative slope. So a negative slope means we would use this point and this point, okay? Which is going to change things a little bit. Okay, so our slope is going to be change in y. We'll do 24.2 minus 19.2 over change in x, but now we're doing 40 minus 60 instead of 60 minus 40. So it gives us negative 5, I'm sorry, positive 5 over negative 20 or negative 0.25. So when we write our equation, it's going to be y equals negative 0.25. We'll use this point up here in the corner. So we'll use x minus 40 this time, plus 24.2. So it affects which Q points we use based on whether there's a positive slope or a negative slope. Number 4, saturated fat in grams is a function of total fat in grams. Use the model to predict the following: the number of grams of saturated fat for a hamburger with 32 grams of total fat. So it says is a function of total fat. So that means X is going to be our total fat, and they're giving us 32 grams of total fat. So in other words, we'll just put that 32 into this equation. 10 plus 0.5 times 32 minus 28. And I think to speed things up, I'll use the calculator a little bit here. Back to our main screen. 10 plus 0.5 times 4. 32 minus 28 is 4. And that gives us 12. So 12 grams of saturated fat. The total number of fat grams for a hamburger with 15 grams of saturated fat. So that's backwards. Now they're giving us Y. They're giving us 15 grams of saturated fat. We're going to have to solve this equation and figure out what the total fat grams were. All right. Not sure what that check mark's doing there. Let's get rid of that. All right, so how do we solve this equation? Let's subtract 10 from both sides to start. Divide both sides by 1/2 or multiply both sides by 2. And then add 28 to both sides. So it's going to be 38 grams. 38 grams of total fat. Give the coordinates, the Q points for each data set. Okay, so from left to right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So the third number from left to right is going to be Q1. That's at 5. And the third number of the second half of the data right here is going to be Q3. All right, and then from bottom to top, let's see, 1, 2, second highest, 3, 4, 5, and the fifth highest. So there's our Q points right here and right here where those intersect. So it's going to be at 5, 4 and 10, 9. Let's do that again. So there's 7 points again. So the second is going to be Q1, 3, 4, 5, and the fifth is going to be Q3 for the X values. This one confuses a lot of people. And then the second highest will be Q1 for the Y values. And the fifth highest will be Q3 for the Y values here. I think I might have said Y before, but I meant X and now Y. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the fifth highest one. So our Q values, or Q points, are right here. And then this point that isn't even a point in the scatter plot. So that's going to be, let's see, our first one is at 3, 8. And our second one is at 8, 2. All right. I've talked long enough. Hopefully this was helpful to you. And if you're in my class, I'll see you again real soon.